Before we dive in, let's just pause for a moment and think about something most of us take for granted: hospitals. That sterile smell. The waiting rooms. The white coats. The beeping machines. Behind every door, someone's being born, someone's dying, someone's praying, someone's crying. But behind those scenes, behind those swinging staff-only doors, that's where the real story lives. And that's the story Adam K. lets us into in This Is Going to Hurt. This isn't your typical memoir. This isn't polished or sugar-coated. It's messy, hilarious, gritty, sometimes painful, and 100% human. Adam K. takes us inside the life of a junior doctor working in the National Health Service, the NHS, in the UK. And junior doctor doesn't mean beginner. It means long nights, short tempers, zero social life, and more responsibility than anyone really prepares you for. It means holding someone's life in your hands, while also being expected to refill the printer toner and somehow skip meals for 30 hours straight. Adam didn't set out to write a book. He was just keeping a diary, scribbling down insane shifts, unforgettable patients, absurd policies, and moments so shocking or funny or heartbreaking that he had to write them down, just to make sense of it all. Years later, after he'd left medicine behind, burned out and broken, he read through those diaries again. And that's when this book was born. This Is Going to Hurt was published in 2017, and almost immediately, it struck a nerve. A big one. Why? Because it did something most books don't. It told the truth. The real truth. Not the TV drama version of hospitals. Not the heroic, slow-motion montages. But the truth about what it's like to work in a system that's stretched to its breaking point, where doctors and nurses are expected to give every piece of themselves and then keep going. And Adam does it with a rare mix of sharp wit and emotional honesty. One minute you're laughing at the sheer absurdity of the medical world. The next minute your heart's in your throat. And maybe that's why it works so well. Because it's real. It doesn't flinch. It shows you how doctors are trained to put others first, always, no matter the cost. It shows the pressure, the exhaustion, the complete lack of sleep. The moments of triumph that no one outside the room ever sees. And the failures that haunt you, sometimes for life. But beyond the medical jargon, beyond the hospital chaos, this book is also a deeply personal story. It's about identity, purpose, mental health, and knowing when it's time to walk away, even from something you once believed defined you. Adam's choice to leave medicine wasn't a failure, it was survival. And in writing this book, he gave voice to thousands of doctors and nurses who were silently struggling, feeling invisible in a system that too often forgets they're human too. And let's be honest, in today's world, this message hits harder than ever. Especially after the global pandemic. We've seen frontline workers pushed to the edge, celebrated one minute, then forgotten the next. We've clapped for healthcare heroes. But have we really heard them? This Is Going to Hurt gives us that chance. It invites us not just to sympathize, but to truly understand. And in doing so, it makes us better, not just as patients, but as people. So if you're looking for a glossy, romanticized version of life in medicine, this isn't that. This is the real thing. It's about the grit and the heartbreak. The mistakes and the small miracles. The midnight laughs that keep you sane. The things you see that you can never unsee. And the quiet, private pain that comes from giving everything you have. And realizing it still might not be enough. This is going to hurt. Yes. But it's also going to open your eyes. It's going to make you laugh out loud and maybe cry when you least expect it. It'll make you think twice the next time you walk past a nurse in a hallway, or wait to see a doctor. Because now you'll know. You'll have seen what it costs. So settle in. Let's go behind the curtain. Into the world of beepers, bleeps, birth, bureaucracy, and the unbelievable stories that never make the headlines. This is real life. This is medicine. This is going to hurt. Let's begin with Section 1, House Officer, 2004 to 2005. So here we go, Day 1. Adam K. walks through the hospital doors for the first time as a house officer, the most junior of junior doctors. Fresh out of med school, shiny stethoscope around his neck, barely clinging to the idea that he knows what he's doing. But that illusion? It gets shattered fast. The year is 2004, and Adam quickly realizes he's entered a battlefield disguised as a hospital. There's no grand welcome, no moment of pride or ceremony. Instead, he's handed a pager that might as well be a grenade and thrown into a world where he's expected to function like a seasoned professional, with barely any sleep, little supervision, and the constant hum of potential disaster around every corner. This part of the book introduces us to the harsh truth. Medical school doesn't prepare you for real medicine. It gives you theory, sure. Anatomy, Latin terms, textbook symptoms. But it doesn't prepare you for the blood, the screaming, the 3 a.m. decisions, the way your hands shake during your first real procedure, or how it feels when you make a mistake and someone suffers because of it. Adam is instantly overwhelmed. His shifts are long, sometimes 100 hours a week, and thankless. He misses meals. He sleeps in scrubs on stiff couches in dim call rooms. He's barely functioning, constantly caffeinated, and absolutely terrified he's going to kill someone by accident. But amid all the panic and exhaustion, there's humor. Glorious, ridiculous, dark humor. That's what keeps Adam afloat. He shares stories that feel almost too absurd to be real. A patient who came in with a potato lodged in a place potatoes shouldn't be. Another who claims he was abducted by aliens mid-appendectomy. There's something about hospitals that draws out the weirdest corners of humanity, and Adam captures it all, with wit that cuts through the fatigue. Still, it's not all funny. The emotional toll is heavy. Patients die. Mistakes happen. There are nights when Adam goes home and cries, or doesn't go home at all. And through it all, he's met with the cold shoulder of a system that seems built to wear people down. No emotional support. No thanks. Just the expectation to keep going, keep smiling, keep showing up. He talks about the bureaucracy, too. The mountains of paperwork, the underfunding, the way junior doctors are treated as both essential and expendable. You're the backbone of the hospital, but you're invisible. Replaceable. There's an unspoken rule: don't complain, don't break, don't stop. Just push through it. Relationships suffer. Adam's life outside the hospital starts to shrink. Birthdays are missed. Calls go unanswered. He becomes someone who lives at the hospital rather than someone who works there. His sense of self begins to blur with the job. And still, every day, he answers the pager. Because that's what you do. By the end of this first section, Adam is already weathered. Not broken yet, but close. And while he still finds the strength to laugh, you start to see the shadows creeping in. The emotional numbness. The moral injuries. The quiet knowing that something isn't right, not with him, but with the system. House officer is the trial by fire. It's where everything begins. And where the first cracks start to show. Now, Section 2, Senior House Officer, 2005 to 2006. If the first section of Adam's story was chaotic, this one turns up the volume. Fast. After surviving his year as a house officer, Adam steps into the next stage of his training, Senior House Officer or SHO. It sounds impressive, and it is, but it comes with even more pressure, even more responsibility, and a whole new layer of expectations. Now, Adam's not just running errands for senior staff. He's making big decisions. Leading the charge on difficult cases. Fielding panicked phone calls in the middle of the night. And all of that? Still without proper sleep, proper food, or much of a life outside hospital walls. This section covers the years 2005 to 2006, and as the entries unfold, you start to see a shift in Adam. He's more confident now, sharper in his clinical judgment. But with that growth comes a darker realization. The deeper you go into the system, the harder it is to keep your humanity intact. He's now working in obstetrics and gynecology, which means babies, yes, but also complications, emergencies, and gut-wrenching moments that leave scars. He walks us through stories that swing wildly from hilarious to horrifying. One minute he's delivering twins in a surprise corridor birth. The next he's facing the trauma of telling a mother her baby didn't make it. That kind of emotional whiplash would shake anyone, and Adam experiences it every single shift. But again, what makes this section so powerful is how raw and funny it still is. His sense of humor remains razor-sharp. There's a patient who thinks her contraceptive coil is a metal worm. Another insists her baby was conceived despite never doing it on Tuesdays. These bizarre and brilliant moments remind you that even in the darkest rooms, laughter is sometimes the only lifeline. But underneath that humor, the cracks are starting to show. Adam shares how the constant pressure is taking a toll, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. He describes having to break devastating news to patients, going straight into another delivery, then pretending nothing happened. No time to process. No time to grieve. Just move on. There's also this deep frustration running through his entries, frustration with hospital bureaucracy, with underfunding, with being told he's lucky to be here, while being treated like he's disposable. And perhaps worst of all, the growing sense that no matter how much he gives, it's never enough. He's working impossible hours, barely sees his family, and his relationship is starting to strain under the weight of his schedule. Birthdays are missed. Conversations go half-finished. He starts questioning quietly if this path, this dream he once had, is worth the pain it's causing. And that's the heartbeat of this section. Pain. Not just the patient's pain, but Adam's too. Pain he hides behind jokes. Pain he can't quite name, but it's there, lurking in every diary entry. The emotional labor of being a doctor, especially in women's health, becomes clearer and heavier. He doesn't just heal bodies, he carries people's trauma, often without any place to put his own. By the end of this part, Adam isn't the same fresh, slightly shocked junior doctor we met in the beginning. He's sharper, yes. Stronger. But also more worn down. You can feel the weight on his shoulders starting to grow unbearable. And yet he still shows up. Still answers the beeps. Still gives everything he has. Because that's what the job demands. Because that's what the system expects. But for how long? Next is Section 3, Registrar, 2006 to 2010. By now, Adam isn't new to the game anymore. He's moved up the ranks to become a registrar, a senior doctor in training who's not only responsible for patients but also junior staff. In short, the hospital now sees him as the one in charge when things go wrong. And they do go wrong. Often. This part of the book is where the gloves really come off. The humor is still there, sharp as ever, but there's more pain behind the jokes now. The absurdity of hospital life starts to feel a little less funny and a lot more dangerous. Adam's diary entries start to show a different tone, less "I can't believe that happened," and more "I don't know how much longer I can keep this up." He's now deep into obstetrics and gynecology, the specialty he's chosen to pursue. And while delivering babies sounds heartwarming, the reality is often brutal. Emergency C-sections. Mothers hemorrhaging. Babies that don't make it. Women in pain, in trauma, in silence. Adam is the one making life or death decisions, sometimes in seconds. No backup. No margin for error. Just pure, unfiltered pressure. One of the most powerful things about this section is how vividly Adam shares the emotional weight of these moments. You feel the adrenaline when he's called in the middle of the night to handle a crashing patient. You feel the silence in the room when he has to tell a mother she's lost her child. And you feel the way each of these moments sticks to him, quietly, slowly, building a kind of emotional armor that doesn't really protect, it just hides the wounds. And yet, through all this, the hospital system continues to demand more. More hours. More patience. More self-sacrifice. He's constantly overworked, constantly undersupported. And what's heartbreaking is how normalized that suffering is. Burnout isn't a risk, it's just a part of the job. Everyone expects it. No one talks about it. Meanwhile, Adam's personal life is hanging by a thread. Relationships fall apart. He's missing holidays, anniversaries, everything that makes life outside the hospital feel real. He's numb to the idea of joy. He's starting to forget who he was before the job consumed him. Then comes the moment. The one that changes everything. There's a catastrophic event during a routine procedure, something no one could have predicted, and something Adam blames himself for anyway. The patient doesn't make it. The grief is overwhelming, but the system responds the only way it knows how, with cold detachment. No counseling. No debrief. Just paperwork. Just blame. This is Adam's breaking point. The moment when the emotional weight becomes too much to carry. The humor isn't enough anymore. The passion isn't enough. He can't unsee what he's seen. And in that moment, medicine, the career he's poured his whole life into, becomes something he can't return to. He walks away. Not because he's weak, not because he doesn't care, but because he cared too much, for too long, in a system that never cared for him back. This section is raw. It's honest. It's the heart of the book, and it reminds you that behind every doctor's smile, there's a mountain of invisible pain. That caring comes at a cost. And that sometimes, walking away isn't giving up, it's choosing to survive. Now, Section 4. Painfully honest appendix. The diary entries are over now. The stories have been told. The laughs have landed. The tragedies have been shared. But this part, this is the soul of the book. The why. The what it all meant. The truth he couldn't fully express while he was in the thick of it. Adam drops the filter here. No punchlines. No funny hospital mishaps. Just raw honesty. And what he reveals is something so many people never hear from doctors. This job breaks people. He reflects on what led him to walk away from medicine, and it wasn't a lack of grit or passion. It was the absence of care for the people who care for everyone else. There was no one to catch him when the job finally broke him. No mental health support. No moment of compassion. He simply disappeared from the system like so many others, and it just kept moving. In this section, he's not just telling his story anymore. He's holding up a mirror to the entire healthcare system. He speaks out for the junior doctors still grinding themselves into the ground. For the ones who stay, despite it all. For the ones who burn out, but feel trapped. For the ones who leave and are made to feel like failures, even though survival is sometimes the bravest thing you can do. He wants readers, and listeners, to understand what being a doctor really means. Not just the prestige, not the white coats and medical dramas, but the cost. The invisible weight that doctors carry. The sleepless nights. The grief that follows them home. The loneliness of being responsible for life and death without anyone to lean on. He calls out the politicians. The media. The people who treat healthcare workers like superheroes when it's convenient, but underpay, underfund, and undervalue them when the cameras are off. And he reminds us, these aren't superheroes. They're humans. With limits. With hearts that break. With families they miss and mental health they sacrifice. This section is a plea. Not for pity, but for understanding. For real, systemic change. For compassion. Adam is using his voice now, not just to entertain, but to advocate. To say the thing too many doctors are afraid to say, this isn't sustainable. And it shouldn't have to be. He hopes this book starts conversations. Opens eyes. Changes how we think about the people behind the scrubs. Because maybe if more people knew the truth, they'd fight harder for the system to change. And maybe, just maybe, fewer brilliant, caring doctors like Adam would have to walk away. Next is Section 5, Secret Diaries Revisited. By this point, Adam K. has already peeled back so many layers, exposing the relentless grind of being a doctor, the absurdity, the heartbreak, the unbearable pressure. But this section? It's softer. Slower. And in a way, it's the most intimate part of all. These are additional entries. Some too raw, too personal, or maybe too heavy to include in the main chapters. It's like he needed time to process before he could share them. There's a kind of stillness here, as if he's sitting alone in a quiet room, flipping through the pages of his own life, deciding which memories still demand to be told. Some of the stories are short, snapshots of ridiculous nights or tragic outcomes. But each one carries a little more weight now that we know the full context. We've walked the journey with him, we've seen what it cost, and so every word hits differently. It's like hearing someone speak after a long pause, and realizing they've been holding something in all along. There's a sense of closure in these entries, but not in a neat, bow-tied, happily ever after kind of way. This isn't fiction. There's no perfect ending. Just a human being, flawed, exhausted, brave, trying to make sense of what happened to him, and why. You can feel how time has changed him. The humor is still there, but there's a gentleness too. A deeper awareness of what it means to carry trauma. What it means to walk away. What it means to live with the decision to leave behind something that once defined you. And it's not just about him anymore. These entries quietly shift the focus outward. To the doctors still stuck in the same brutal cycle. To the patients who never see the stress behind the scrubs. To the healthcare system that desperately needs repair, but keeps limping forward on the backs of people like him. The message here is simple, and deeply human: don't forget us. Don't forget the ones who gave everything and were still left broken. Don't forget the stories. Because even when the pager stops beeping, the echoes stay. This part doesn't try to rewrite anything. It doesn't chase redemption. It just offers honesty. A few more pages of truth. And sometimes, that's more powerful than any ending. Next section is postscript and afterward. By now, the diary has been laid bare. We've followed Adam through the hospital corridors, the heartbreaks, the humor, the mental and emotional unraveling that ultimately led him to walk away from medicine. But in the postscript, we hear from a version of Adam that's had time to reflect, not just on what happened then, but on what's happened since. The release of this is going to hurt made waves. Not just as a best-selling book, but as a movement of sorts, one that sparked conversation around junior doctors, mental health and medicine, NHS funding, and the sheer human toll of working on the front lines. And here, Adam acknowledges that. He's deeply honest about how overwhelmed he was by the public's response, how many people reached out, not just with praise, but with stories of their own. Doctors and nurses wrote to him in droves. Some said thank you. Others said, I thought I was the only one. Many admitted they had left medicine too, broken and bruised, and never felt they were allowed to talk about why. His story gave them permission. But perhaps even more moving were the messages from patients, those who had never thought about what it must be like for the person behind the stethoscope. People who had lost loved ones, or gone through traumatic births, who now understood the pain on both sides of the operating table. Adam doesn't pat himself on the back here. He's not interested in being seen as a hero or a martyr. If anything, he's humble, almost stunned, that sharing his pain could help others feel less alone. That's what this book became, a kind of quiet solidarity, a spotlight on a world that's so often hidden behind sterile white walls. He also reflects on what hasn't changed. The long hours. The underfunding. The relentless expectations placed on junior doctors. The burnout that's still as common, and as unspoken, as ever. He hopes things are getting better. But he doesn't pretend they've been fixed. And then there's a moment of tenderness. A kind of apology, not for leaving medicine, but for the silence he once kept. For not speaking up sooner. For not realizing how many others needed to hear the truth he had buried inside him. What you hear in this final part is a man who has finally made peace, not just with what happened in that operating room, but with who he became after. He's no longer a doctor. But he is, deeply, a storyteller. An advocate. And someone who believes, now more than ever, that truth, no matter how painful, is worth telling. This isn't just the end of a book. It's a closing of a wound. A deep breath after years of holding it in. And it leaves you not just thinking about Adam K., but about every unseen, unheard doctor out there, fighting, breaking, surviving, healing, in silence. Until someone like him finds the words. There is deep takeaways from this book. This is going to hurt. When you finish This Is Going to Hurt, you're not just closing a book, you're stepping out of someone else's life. A life that most of us never get to see. A life that exists behind the swinging double doors of a hospital, under fluorescent lights, somewhere in the middle of the night when the rest of the world is sleeping. And what lingers most is not just the chaos of medicine, or the unbelievable pressure, or the hilarious and horrifying situations Adam K. lived through. What stays with you is the silence. The silence that surrounded him. The silence that the system demanded. The silence that almost swallowed him whole. This book isn't about being a doctor. It's about being human in a place that often forgets what humanity looks like. It shows us what happens when a job requires more than just your skills. It wants your time, your sleep, your relationships, your mental health, your heart, and sometimes even your soul. Adam didn't walk away from medicine because he stopped caring. He walked away because he cared too much, and the system didn't care for him back. And that's one of the biggest takeaways. Compassion without care is a slow kind of destruction. You can be brilliant, dedicated, and resilient, but when you're constantly pushed to your breaking point without support, something inside you gives out. And when it does, the system doesn't catch you. It just replaces you. Quietly. Like you were never there at all. This book forces us to reckon with that. To ask, how many incredible doctors, like Adam, have left in silence? How many have stayed, but lost parts of themselves doing so? How many are still out there, smiling through trauma, hiding the cracks because they think no one will listen? It also opens our eyes as patients, as people who rely on doctors, often in the most vulnerable moments of our lives. It reminds us that behind every rushed consult or tired face is someone who hasn't eaten in hours, who's working a double shift, who maybe just lost a patient 10 minutes ago, but has to act like nothing happened. This book gives those people a voice. And maybe the most important lesson of all? We need to do better. As a society. As voters. As people who say we care about healthcare but often ignore the humans inside it. Because no one should have to sacrifice their life just to save others. Adam K.'s story hurts to hear. But that's the point. It's supposed to hurt. Because only when it hurts, do we truly see what's been hiding in plain sight. And when the laughter fades, and the final page turns, what's left is this: doctors are not superheroes. They're people. And people need care, too. If you found this summary insightful and valuable, don't forget to show your support by subscribing to The Mindful Brief on YouTube. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this audiobook summary, share it with your peers, friends, or family who might benefit from it, and leave a comment below with your thoughts. Your engagement helps us create more in-depth and valuable content for you. Stay tuned for more summaries, insights, and strategies to elevate your knowledge and career. Subscribe now and be part of the journey.